Without further ado, here's Heather Hopkins.
Hello, welcome. I'm so used to standing up here and doing financial things. This is a whole different avenue for me, so it's very different. I'm very excited and welcome tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate all of your support and coming out here tonight to see the book and talk. It's really very exciting for me. I've been writing, I don't want to repeat too much of what Amy said, but I've been writing my whole life. Short stories and poems and songs. I wrote a song that I sang to my husband at our wedding, and I wrote a song I sang to my brother at his wedding, and and actually my first published piece was when my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 juvenile diabetes. Several years ago I wrote a little story about living with diabetes, and that was published in the Twins magazine, and that kind of what got me the taste for getting things published. So that was very exciting for me. Actually, I'm a business major by trade. Most of you know that after graduating Syracuse, I went to work in Maryland with my father as a financial advisor, and am now as president and senior financial advisor with Morgan Stanley Farming. Here, and that's my day job. When I come home, after I put my 3 beautiful children to bed, then my true love is reading and writing, and so that's really what I try to do, most of the time. As I was writing all these years, I found that writing was such a great way to express or write about the things that I would love to see and hear. And you watch the movies and you see all these cool things that they invent in the movies, and so writing is just a really good way to express your thoughts and your likes and dislikes, and it gave me a nice avenue to let out my creativity. I finished writing this book, The Weapon, on maternity leave with my now 9-year-old twins. So that was a long time ago. People say, "Have you read? Can you print it?" I finished the book many years ago, and it just has taken that long to get to where I am now. After you write the book, then you have to edit the book, and that's a back and forth process, and that takes time. And then I sent it out to hundreds and hundreds of agents and publishers. My sister-in-law Katie knows that, because together we sent out hundreds. And in the end, I was advised to self-publish, which is what I did. And there's many levels of self-publishing, from just doing it yourself online to hiring a publishing company, which is what I did, Vantage Press. They're a very well-known company. A lot of famous authors have started with them. And so they've given me my beginning into starting my publishing career. So I would like to read a part of the book. I've chosen a section. I would have read the whole chapter, but it's so long and I could get caught up in the whole thing. So I'm just going to read a piece of it. I feel it's a really good portrayal of how exciting the book can be, and you kind of get an idea of the main character, Veronica, and how she is. And so it gives you a nice taste of the book. And obviously, since I want everyone to buy the book, I don't want to give a lot away. So I'm trying to not give too much away with this passage, but it does give you a little bit of how exciting the book is. So for those of you who read it, you're going to say, "Oh, I read that part." For those of you who haven't, you're going to say, "Oh, I can't believe it." I'd like to first apologize by saying I can't do accents. But in my head, these characters have accents. There's a Russian woman with a Russian accent, and there's an old Southern colonel with a Southern accent, and I can't do accents. And I've tried to read this over and over, but I can't. So just try and hear past that to what I'm saying, because I can't read it without pretending to do the accent, because that's just how I hear it in my head. So that being said, I will begin. So, what's so special about this phone? Colonel Gray flipped open the screen and stared stared into it. Looks like one of those little TVs old farts take to football games. No, you don't understand, said Carrie, reaching greedily for it. Suddenly, there was a commotion on the front porch, followed by a lot of shouting. Colonel Gray leapt up from his seat, setting the phone down on the table in front of him. You stay here, he said, reaching for his sidearm and striding toward the front door. Veronica grabbed the phone off the table and shoved it into her jacket. Hey, you shouldn't do that, exclaimed Carrie. And you should keep your trap shut about the phone, snapped Veronica. Carrie's mouth flopped open. She was clearly bewildered and crestfallen. What do you mean? I was just saying the phones were so cool. Maybe someone would be willing to kill for them. Why would that make you mad? I was proud of you. Wait, said Veronica, putting her finger to Carrie's lips. Colonel Gray speaking to someone out on the porch. Veronica nodded for Carrie to follow her around the other side of the central fireplace. Outside on the porch, at least a dozen soldiers surrounded 3 young men and a girl. The 4 were dressed for camping, with heavy packs on their backs. They looked disheveled and frightened. The girl was lying on the porch. She was blonde, thin, and very pretty. She was bleeding heavily through her red sock. Something white stuck out from the middle of it. Veronica guessed it was bone. Look, man, she's really hurt, exclaimed one of the college boys in heavily New York accented exasperation. Could you guys get off your military-industrial high horse for like 2 seconds and help us out? The Gray stood still. I will give you another minute to get off this property. Are you nuts? Yelled one of the other boys. The girl moaned at his feet. Can't you just drive us to the nearest road or something? You're trespassing, said Colonel Gray. Because we're fucking lost, yelled the first boy. Bear with your brain when you join the army, you fascist assholes. Again. Colonel Gray squared his shoulders and raised his service revolver. If I have to tell you one more time, I will be forced to use extreme measures. Are you absolutely crazy? What is this? Nazi Germany? What do you have in there? The aliens? I'm not going anywhere. Come on, shoot me. I dare you. My dad's a state congressman. You'll be redeployed to the Arctic Circle. Colonel Gray rolled his eyes at the soldiers surrounding them, shuffled their feet uncertainly. Fine, we'll go, moaned the girl. This is a stupid fight. Help me up, Johnny. One of the boys leaned down and picked her up by her armpits. Thanks for the help, big soldier man, said the girl, her voice dripping with sarcasm and evident disappointment. Veronica thought she detected an accent, but she couldn't tell. Although Colonel Gray remained unfazed, the other soldiers looked very uncomfortable. The college kids were about their own ages, and the girl was very pretty. Colonel, mumbled one of them. Carrie grabbed Veronica's arm. You can't let them do this, she whispered to her. That girl is hurt. We have to help her. No, hissed Veronica. She didn't like the situation and was more than happy to let the colonel throw them out. Something just didn't sit right. Leave it alone. It's not up to us. Let's go sit back down at the table. For some reason, Veronica wanted to get as far away from this commotion as possible. Drop it, Private. They cannot be here, Colonel Gray said. Now good day to you 4. He motioned them to move away with a sweep of his pistol. The girl took a step and screamed. Just then, Carrie burst past Veronica and out the front door of the cabin. This is so wrong! What happened to all that moral duty crap you were spitting back there? Can't you goons see she's hurt? Screamed Carrie. Veronica took one step outside after her sister. For a split second, she locked eyes with the hurt college girl. The girl smiled obscenely and yelled, Ostante! In a split second, the 3 other hikers had ripped heavy machine guns from their packs. The girl leapt up the staircase and placed a pistol against Colonel Gray's throat. Then she pulled the trigger. Her fake bit of bone lay behind her on the ground. The night erupted in gunfire. Veronica grabbed Carrie and fell back through the cabin doorway as one of the soldiers pulled it shut behind her. Lock it, he yelled from the other side, before his voice was cut off in a hail of bullets thudding against the door. Veronica reached up and jammed the lock home. What is going on? Screamed Carrie. Calm down. They must have followed us here from Athena House. Bullets thumped against the windows and door, but nothing broke through. Come on, Veronica and Carrie crawled back to the dining room. Outside, the shooting stopped. Then, a flurry of bullets walked into the front window. It held, although the plastic and wire of the window were now stretched opaque. "Oh, Veronica," called a woman's voice. Her accent was Russian, not mine. "We've come to rescue you. Sergei sent us for help." There was another single rifle shot. The woman giggled like a heartbeat. Carrie glanced at Veronica, and Veronica waved her quiet. "More men are coming up the road right now. All your soldier boys are dead. You can't stay in there forever," said the voice. "If you don't come out, we'll have to start a fire. It's getting cold out here. Maybe we can all make some s'mores when Sergei gets here. Sing 'Take Me Out to the Ball Game.'" "What's wrong with her?" exclaimed Carrie in fear. "She enjoys her work." Veronica looked around the room. Outside, the Russian woman kept talking, clearly trying to drive her out from nerves. She wondered if others were really coming, and if they were, how much time had they had to get out of there? Whoever these people were, they had just obliterated a platoon of secret American soldiers. Veronica and her sister didn't have a chance. 3 more rifle shots palmed into the reinforced front door. "Hey, what are you doing in there? Praying? Calling someone on your famous phone? You should see your president. They won't let out any more photos. There's a rumor his bottom lip fell off." "We have to find a way out of here," whispered Veronica. "No one else has said anything. Maybe that woman is the only one left. Maybe we can just run out the back door," answered Carrie hopefully. "I don't think we can risk it. There's no reason to think those other bastards are dead. Otherwise, she wouldn't be trying to draw us out with all her insane chit-chat. She's just trying to break our concentration. Stay with me, Carrie. We won't break if we stick together." "She blew the colonel's face off right in front of me. He didn't deserve to die like that," said Carrie, beginning to sob. Veronica slid her arm over her sister's shoulder. "It's okay. She's not going to do a thing to either of us. I won't let her. Now snap out of it. There's no time for crying." Veronica crawled on her belly over to the glass front bookcase near the dining table. She eased it open and switched on the bottomless light so she could see it. Its pale glow illuminated her pale face and hands. She hoped Carrie wouldn't notice the tremors that ran through her body. Carrie crawled over after her. Outside, the Russian woman was singing some obscene song about a pirate and a porpoise. "What are you doing?" asked Carrie. "Colonel Ray said this was a place for Congress to come and hide during the Cold War. I doubt they were going to jam them all in this log cabin. There must be a tunnel or a secret room or something that links the cabins together. Or to the mountain or something," answered Veronica, yanking books from the shelves and tossing them across the floor. "What are you looking for?" "This is a government building, built like government bureaucracy. There's got to be a visitor's manual, something to list escape plans, hidden food stashes, weapons, neighboring missile silos, I don't know, that sort of thing. Don't you think a bunch of scared bureaucrats would plan for something like that? What if they got here and all the army was dead? They'd have to figure out things for themselves. Start looking in the other cases." Carrie slid on her belly across the wooden floor and started to rifle through another of the cases. Several more shots popped into the reinforced glass. But Carrie hunched her shoulder and kept looking. Within minutes, all the books in the room were piled against the front door, mainly multi-volume histories, collections of crossword puzzles, and mystery novels. They found nothing. "Great, now what do we do?" asked Carrie. Several more bullets punched the window. This time, they beat out the rhythm to shade and haircut. Veronica had to admit the Russian had panache. "It might be in another room," she sighed. "Or it might not be here at all. Maybe you get it when you become a congressman or something. Maybe they just figured people would figure it out." Outside, they heard several cars honk somewhere farther off. Carrie's eyes rolled like a frightened deer. "They're coming!" Veronica laid her face down on the floor to think. There had to be a hidden exit door. Logically, it would be stupid to have no escape route. The cabin was above ground. It wouldn't withstand a blast or fallout, but the tons of granite a couple of hundred yards away certainly could. There had to be something buried under the mountain, and some way of getting there. An exit door could be anywhere in the building. If it were hidden, there was no way they could find it before the Russians broke in. They really had no choice. Okay, we have to try and open every door in this place. Yank on anything that could be a knob or a switch, every painting, every light sticking out of the wall, every clock and light switch. The Cold War was a period of extreme paranoia and fear. They probably would have hidden any entrance to the main base in case this cabin was breached. You go to the second floor, I'll hit all the ones downstairs. Be careful not to open a door that leads outside. Carrie just stared at her, her face puffy with tears. I can't. Veronica grabbed her shoulders and looked straight into her eyes, trying to will some of her own courage into her sister. You can, and you will. You're a strong girl, Carrie. It's obvious to everyone, said Veronica. Carrie brushed the tears from her eyes. She took a deep breath as if she were about to jump into the ocean. Then she hopped to her feet and ran upstairs. Veronica got up along with her and started running through the downstairs hallways, yanking on knobs and latches. Outside, headlights started to light up the ruined windows. It sounded as if several vehicles had pulled up into the cabin's front yard. Voices started talking to each other in Russian. It sounded like they had brought explosives, although Veronica's panic was making it hard to translate. Carrie, go faster, shouted Veronica. Veronica ran through 3 small auxiliary offices, 3 toilets, and then into the kitchen, yanking pots and pans from the racks in a complete panic. They banged and crashed all around her, most of them relics from the 1950s. Dinnerware shattered all around her. She no longer cared how much noise she was making. She yanked open the pantry. Inside, the back shelves had been pulled open like a door, showing a dank staircase leading into the darkness. Cans and bottles lay smashed and rolling on the floor. A bag of flour had spilled, and a small set of footprints tracked through it and down the stairs. A row of lanterns hung on a hook by the door. One of the lanterns was gone. It looked like the cook had made a run for it. Veronica ran back to the bottom of the second-floor staircase. Carrie, get down here! I found... Just then, there was a horrendous boom, and Veronica was flying back down the hallway to the kitchen. She smashed against the wall and dropped to the floor. Plaster and wire fell from the ceiling, and the air was filled with chalky dust. Overhead sirens and sprinklers snapped on, dousing everything in freezing water. Veronica sputtered and got to her feet. The way in front of her was blocked by fallen beams and part of the brick fireplace. The rubble was impassable. Hello? Knock, knock, called the Russian woman's voice. I think your door is broken. It was impossible to get back to the dining room or the stairwell. The only way Veronica could go back was to the kitchen. She looked up at the ceiling as if she could see through it. It was impossible to know what had happened to her sister. Veronica stood with the sprinkler water running down her back, cleaning the blood and rubble out of her wounds. She couldn't leave her sister. If she was still alive, they'd kill her if they caught Veronica as well. If Veronica escaped, her sister would likely be used as a hostage, and that might be the only way to get them both out of this. If she surrendered or tried to get to the second floor, they were both dead. They had already shot at them once, and they had been willing to use explosives to get inside the cabin. It was clear this was an assassination, not a kidnapping. Veronica stood in the water, still trying to make her decision. Miss Stone, we would like to talk to you just for a second, came the Russian woman's voice from the other side of the rubble. A fist-sized chunk of it came crashing to the floor. Veronica started, half expecting the Russian woman to come crashing through. Hey, let go of me, screamed Carrie on the other side of the rubble. Looks like we have your sister. She looks like she's bleeding pretty badly. Come out now, or I'll shoot her dead. Or maybe we'll sew up her wounds with some electrical cord. Veronica watched blood wash down her arm until her fingertips turned blue from the cold water. They wouldn't kill her sister. Until they had Veronica, Carrie was valuable. Once Veronica was dead, Carrie was a liability. She was just a girl who had stumbled too close to something much bigger than herself. The best thing to do would be to run. Veronica squeezed her fists tight and whispered down to her shoes, I'm sorry. Then she quietly hurried back down the hallway and disappeared into the pantry, pulling the door shut behind her. There was a heavy iron door to block anyone from coming in. She slid it into place, trying to convince herself the guilt and cowardice she was feeling was unnecessary and wrong-headed. She would meet the Russian and her cohorts again, and it would be on her own terms. It was the only way she'd get Carrie back. She had to believe she was doing the right thing. Could she ever forgive herself if she was wrong? The idea of the weapon?
Or yes,
Okay.
that's the whole thing.
Actually, the idea came from, and I don't know if you remember, the movie The Net with Sandra Bullock. Okay, so that was one of my favorites, probably not the greatest movie, but I remember that movie gave me the idea because in the movie, these bad guys took over her identity and pretty much erased her from the system. And how could that be? And she had to go through technology to not only get her life back, but also expose the bad guys. And she had to do that by going all over the world. Wherever she could find a technology portal, she would log in, and this was years ago before they had what they have now, but back then I thought it was very cool. And so it just made me think of how technology can be used for so many good things, but so many bad things that unless you really understand it, it's a scary thing. And you really need to be able to know how to deal with technology. But I also love the fact that it was worldwide. No matter where you were, you could take care of what you needed to take care of. So that gave me the idea of, first of all, I don't know anything about technology. I'm computer literate. But it gave me the idea of writing about someone who would use technology, which is the wave of the future, we knew this even 15 years ago, to take over, to be powerful and strong and courageous. And so that gave me the idea of using technology as to, kind of say, as a weapon. And Veronica, as I love strong female characters, I just think the world does not have enough of them. And so I wanted to write a book about someone who would be able to use technology to create, a way to either destroy or protect the world. So that's really what gave me the idea. Jackson.
Why was this section of your book kind of like scary and sad at the same time? Were you going like through a bad phase or something?
No, that's a very good question. Jackson asked, for those of you who couldn't hear, he asked, why was it scary and sad at the same time? And so really I mean, you have to read the whole story. I was only reading you a little piece. And so at this point in the story, she is scared because many things have happened up to this point. But it really was just a way of showing you different people's personalities and how they handle scary things and good things and how they either can make it through a hard time or not. So it's really just a character. But very good question. Yes, Claudine.
Are the characters in your book purely fictional, or any of them based on any past or present people in your life?
No, they're purely fictional. Although some people would like to say that Veronica's like my alter ego, someone who I would, love to have some of her, all the things that she has. But no, they're really not based on anyone. The names in the book are just names that I like. I always thought of Veronica as a strong name. Always, even when I was little, I always thought Veronica was was a girl who could make things happen. She was strong and she was confident, and that's just what I think of the name Veronica. And then of course her last name is Stone. You can't get stronger than Stone. So Veronica Stone was how I came up with the name of her. And the Japanese businessman, and I did research on different names and Japanese cultures and Russian, because I didn't want to pick a name that might be saying, screw you in Japanese. I didn't want to do that. So I just picked a name, but I liked how his name, which I shortened to Hero, for those of you who read it, for those of you who haven't yet, his nickname is Hero, and he's not a hero, but it's kind of like pun on the word, because I like that she calls him Hero, and she looks at him as a hero in the beginning, but he is not a hero. So I just chose names that I thought would sound good and work well, and they're not based on real people. Yes?
In writing the book, did you experience any writer's block, and also how did you work through it?
Yes. Yes, and actually, my first book signing that I went to, I was with Leslie at Jennifer Weiner. I forget what book was that? Yeah, whatever, one of those books. And I remember books anymore. Oh, in her shoes, yes. I mean, her books are not movies now, so she did well for herself. But I remember going to her book signing and saying, and it was years and years and years ago, and I hadn't quite gotten this to where I wanted it to be, and I was saying to her, how do you deal with writer's block? And she was saying, everybody gets it, and you either have to just push forward and just write. So that means whether you're continuing with the story that you have now, or you're moving on to another chapter or another section. So sometimes I would just keep writing and realize that now I needed to take the new part I wrote and add in between. And now I needed to go back. And you're always going back when you write. You're always going back and going back and going back. And I need to add here and I need to change here. So if I got writer's block, then I would either start just writing on another train of thought, or I would just take a break from it and do something and think of other things and then come back to it later. But yeah, that happens. That happens a lot. That's hard to get through.
Did you know how the story would go? Did you do a beginning, a middle, and an end, or did you create it as you go?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, I wrote this one like a story. So I would just keep writing. I would pull it out, every so often, and I would add to it. And I would just keep writing the story as it was going. So that's why I said my original was a very rough draft. And from that rough draft, then we looked at it and we said, okay, you need to add a whole bunch of stuff here, and you need to change this, and maybe we should do this to here. And I also like, I don't know if any of you know the movie Jackie Brown. Well, anyway, it's a Quentin Tarantino movie. And I just love how, especially in that movie, it goes back and forth. So you're watching her, and she's going through this whole point in her life. And then all of a sudden it goes back to the beginning, but you're not seeing it through someone else's eyes. And so I just love when you go back and forth, which is why in this book, one section is now, and then all of a sudden you're transformed back to when she was in college. Because I just like, I guess, keeping you on your toes and thinking, okay, well, this is really exciting, but so now we're hearing about how she got to that point. Okay, and now we're going back to the other part. So that's just how I write and how I like to read is back and forth. And I'm making this a long answer, I'm sorry, but there is another book that I've been working on for as long as this one, and I've made it way too difficult for myself. So with writer, I'm pretty much stuck right in the middle. So with that book, it's based on 4 lives. And in the end, my plan is to intertwine the lives. But for the beginning, I'm writing how each person is living and what's happening to each person. And so I have to go back. Every time I go back to character A, I have to go back and read what I wrote about character A to continue on with character A. So once I do that, then I have to go back to character, and it just was so much work and so much time that I never was able to finish it. So that is much harder than just writing a story. So I have found, write your rough draft, write your story, make it as rough as you need it to be, because you can always go back and add, or change, or fix. But once you have the story written, the rough draft written, then it's just so much easier to add to it and make it bigger and better. Can I ask someone else, Jackson, since you had a turn? I'll come to you. Yes?
The ending certainly wasn't an ending. Sounds like it's a sequel coming up. Have you started on it yet?
No, as you know, I have a full-time job with 3 children. No, I have not. When I wrote the book, I absolutely left it open to a sequel, and 100% had every intention of writing a sequel. And every day since I've written this book, it's in my head, and I think about how I would start it, what I would say, what I want her to do. But now I will have to get back into writing it because I do want to, and now that I have people who are thankfully enjoying it, I would like to write the sequel. But I was saying this to someone the other night. I don't remember who it was, that when I wrote this book, 10 or so years ago, I was younger. I didn't even have children when I started writing the book. Now I have 3 children, and I'm 40, and I have a job, and I have a home, and my life is so different than when I wrote this, that I think the way I would write the sequel would be different anyway, because it would be through the eyes of someone who is older. So when I write the sequel, Veronica will be older than had I written the sequel back then. It would have just been a continuation. But now, and I actually think it'll come across that much better, but now I think I'll have given her many years to stew and to think about how she's going to enact her revenge. And so my sequel will be that much better, but that much different now that I'm older. So yeah, I will write it, yes. Yes.
Can you see it as a possible movie down the road?
Oh, of course. And it's funny, when I wrote the book, which again was 10 years ago, some of the characters I had in mind are now too old. They're older characters now.
Visualize it.
Well, I've given it some thought. I mean, obviously this is a huge pipe dream. Making the book a book is much easier than making it a movie. That's very hard to do. I don't even know if that would be possible. But yeah, there's characters I have in mind. They would have, for Carrie and the college kids and the president's daughter, they would have to be new and young and up-and-coming actresses, like Selena Gomez or something. I can see her in that character, Carrie. For Veronica, I don't know. For Veronica, I don't know. I'm not sure what characters I would think of for her because I had Sandra Bullock in mind because I really loved her. But nowadays, I don't know. That's hard to think about because the characters get older, and it's got to be a certain person. So yes.
Heather, I'm just wondering, it's very hard to send a manuscript off to the editor and have it come back, especially when you send it in, you think it's great, it's wonderful, and then they come back and they have all of these changes they want to convey. And I know you went through that, as every writer does. How did you deal with it? Seriously, and it's a big thing with writing,
Yeah.
Will I change it, or will I do it my way, or will I do it their way?
Well, when you work with an editor, they go piece by piece. They don't look at the whole book, and it doesn't come back to me with red lines all the way through it. They kind of go piece by piece. So they start off with chapter 1 or chapter 1 or 2, and they give you footnotes. And they say, right here, this needs to be explained a little bit more. Or over here, we think you should add why did this happen, or where did this character come from? You need to explain a little bit more about how this person came to be. So they give you advice on how to make the changes. They don't make the changes. They just tell you all the places that you should make the changes. spelling and graphical errors, I mean, obviously, that I'm gonna fix. But when they say to you, you know, you need to add this part, this doesn't make sense. Or you need to, I mean, when I first edited the book, the very first, very rough original version, Jackson, just leave it, sweetie. Sit down, it's okay. I spilled. When I first wrote it, it was so rough that the editor was saying to me, we need a whole chapter in here. We're missing a whole section on how she came to be this person. So you need to add a whole chapter. And then I would send them the chapter I edited, and they would edit it, and they would send it back to me, and I would say, okay, I understand what you're saying here, I'll fix that, but I don't agree with what you're saying here, so I'm not going to do that. And basically, I was the one who said yes or no, and made the changes where I agreed. And if I didn't agree, I would say to them, I don't want to do that, and they would say, okay, they wanted me to make Veronica much softer, and I gave in a little. I mean, there's parts of Veronica that I gave into that I really wanted her to be harder and meaner because of all she goes through. She can't be that soft. But my editor was saying, you know, she's not a superhero. She is a human, and people reading the book need to connect with a human side of her. So I gave into that and made her a little more human.
Is the book about 4 lives going to be a sequel to this book?
Yes. Nathan, did you have a question?
It's interesting that you said before that you were inspired by the net, because in that, if I remember that movie, Sandra Bullock is actually a very weak and timid character.
Mm-hmm.
But Veronica, as you said, is a very, very strong character. Why did you decide to make her so strong?
Well, Sandra Bullock's character starts out weak, but if you actually think about it, that's a pretty strong person to go to the lengths that she went through to do the things she did. I don't know if, first of all, I don't understand technology the way she did, but I don't know if I could do the things she did. I mean, she snuck into those, you know, places and she risked her life in order to expose the bad guys. Like, towards the end, at least this is what I remember, she wasn't so much interested as in getting her life back as she was as exposing them. That was her #1 priority. And so I felt that deep down, she was a really strong character. She started off weak and quiet, but I don't think that's really who she was. Now, that being said, no, that is not Veronica at all. She is not weak. She has been strong since day one, and she's just really, really bright. And she's just able to make things happen and make sure things happen. So I didn't take that part of the Sandra Bullock character, but I did take the end part of that character. Oh, any other question? Maybe one more? No? Okay, no.
So you mentioned that writing about Veronica was like your alter ego, and how you gave
He's
in a
my
little.
partner, so I deal with him all day, every day.
Tough life. But how you gave it a little bit to Veronica. So in writing about that, how did Veronica have an impact on you as Heather?
It didn't. It's just exciting to write about her and think about her and enjoy reading about her and all that she does. And I enjoy thinking about the sequel and how I can pretend to be her again by writing it. But it doesn't impact me. I don't see myself as anything like her.